get a drink of water.
That's a good idea. You're not getting anything stiffer? So Esther, you were up quite late the other night.
Yes, I was. Now I get up for work at 5:30, so, or 5:15.
We're recording now.
Yeah.
So Thank you. I'm sorry, what's your name? Kevin. I'm Chris.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Recording in progress.
Okay. As soon as Petra comes back, then why don't we get started? So we're now recording.
Okay. So, we're waiting for,
Well, I'm just going to go ahead because
Okay.
we have no time to spare.
I know.
So I wish to call the Audit Committee to order for our meeting on Thursday, December 9, 2021 at 2 p.m. This is a public meeting, and we're in Conference Room A of the City Hall.
Okay, second that.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll do a roll call. So Chairman White is here, present. Petra, do you want to?
Counselor Huda, present.
Yeah, Hawk
Councilor Kennedy, present.
Thank you.
Furman, present.
Beautiful. And then can we please get a motion on the approval of the minutes?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Now, Petra, what happens to those? Do those get filed off in,
They need to go to Joanna Deemer.
okay,
And they, yes, they will get filed
okay. Are-
and be made public.
Okay, would you be willing to forward those to Johanna for me, please, or do you want me to do that?
Chair.
The chair, okay. There are many duties I'm unaware of.
Private person.
Okay, so let's get started on the RFPs. And with your permission, what I'd like to do is to change the order slightly on the agenda, because I had the Audit Committee charter as last, and I'd like to have that. Oh, are you there? Oh, good, thank you, Esther.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you see me still?
Well,
Yes.
yep, that's very helpful, thank you.
Yeah.
And I have hard copies here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And so what I'd like to do is to change the order, please, and do the RFP for the non-attest last. Oh, Suzanne,
He's here,
I had expected that Karen was going to be here.
and we had to divide and conquer again, so he
Okay,
is, yes,
So Karen won't be
She's
coming in,
upstairs.
and you're
Yep.
representing?
yes.
Thank you.
good.
Apologies for being late.
So let's see, this is for Suzanne.
Thank you.
So this is the, what I just stated was that I'm wanting to change the order of the agenda, so we'll do the auditing RFP first, and Councilor Kennedy's on the Zoom.
Okay.
Hi, Suzanne.
Hello.
And then we're going to do the charter second, and then the non-attest RFP, which is the roughest one last. So, what I just handed out is the auditing RFP, and I think we're just about there with the exception of the highlighted, and I have page numbers actually on this now. So page number 3, you can see that the highlighted portions, we're still missing the updates on these numbers. And that I asked Karen to please provide a draft audit for 2021 so we could pull the numbers from that. But in any case, if we could please get those the updates.
We are working on those
see.
updated numbers.
Okay, great.
Estimated
Yeah.
time of arrival?
Soon. Soon.
Okay,
Well, it would be good to get them by the end of this week or by Monday, because our next meeting is on the 15th at 5 o'clock, and I'd like to have this all sealed and ready to go off to you guys at that time. So if we could please get it in the next couple of days, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, do you want to discuss now kind of the city's position on some of these issues in terms of the non-attest services and kind of maybe clarify some of the scheduling
That
pieces?
wasn't on the agenda. I think that Dieter, did you want to say something?
well, yeah, it wasn't on the schedule, and I think in your, I don't know if, I'm pretty sure Suzanne got copied on the memo that went to the city manager on your position on this.
Right.
So I guess when we get to the non-attest services, because I do also have a lot of questions on the non-attest RFP.
I'm not surprised.
So I guess when we get there, if
We can
we
talk about it then.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
because I just figure you would be helpful to know some of the, I know you wanted the schedule in terms of how it unfolds in the finance department from a scheduling point of view. So
Yeah.
I have some of that information on the 60-day rule and how that plays into the schedule for performance of the audit. The fact that how we, our the city government is a modified accrual basis. The sewer funds, water funds are a full accrual basis, and how that all plays into the unfolding of the fall, shall we say.
We understand that whatever gets audited needs to be on a full accrual basis. So, and that's where the non-attest services come in. So, and we understand that they're essential for having a successful audit.
Correct, so I can walk you through the schedule.
Yeah, why don't we, then, I agree with Peter, why don't we hold off until we get to the non-attest RFP on that? Is that okay with you?
Certainly, it's your meeting, and I will weigh in where appropriate.
Okay, thank you. So, and again, I repeat our need for getting the highlighted data in the auditing RFP from the city in the next few days, so that we can, on the 15th, we can have a final auditing RFP. Other than that, I think that and then there are these highlighted statements on page 9 and the top of 10, which I think are put in there as part of the non-attest work being done as part of the auditing. But in point of fact, I don't think they really belong in here. So Councilor Kennedy is scrolling to the back of the document. But it talks about the city preferring interim field work and a pre-closing trial balance being done by June 15th. I don't think that pertains to the work of the auditor. I think that's the work of the non-attest service provider. And then the top of page 10, a preliminary draft of the audit and required journal entries, I think, are similarly non-attest. So unless you have an objection, Suzanne, my inclination would be to strike number 5, 6, and 8.
So you should understand that the city does not recommend splitting the non-attest services from the auditing services without having a conversation with the city council, because this has impacts in terms of the budget and the timing of those, services. So we're not saying it can't be done, but I'm willing to walk you through why we have traditionally done it as one package, and a chunk of it is financial, and part of it is the timing of getting all the work done. in the compressed time frame that we have. So, like I said, I came prepared to kind of give you the perspective of it. So we're not saying it can't be done. We're just saying there are significant impacts if one is to split it, those two services, and it is probably a policy decision because it will have significant impacts on cost. So happy to walk you through that whenever you decide it's helpful and appropriate to do so.
I appreciate that, thank you. So why don't we hold off on that then? And so I will simply put question marks next to number 5, 6, and 8. And we'll wait for the further conversation. Otherwise, Petra and Hawk and Esther, did you have further comments on this draft RFP for the auditing?
I-
Yep,
Yeah.
please, yep.
Okay, so I guess this will kind of coincide with, I believe, what Suzanne brings to the table here. I'm not really clear on H, the schedule of activities, and how that would be changed. And I guess I would remind everybody that when we discussed, we were advised as an audit committee that we should have the non-attest services separated out by Elena of Melanson when we did this last time. That's the reason we're bringing this forward. And the schedule on page 10 of activities, I know we can't have closing entries. I'm trying to get it straight in my mind of what has to be done, and I'm not really clear as to what the city was preparing previously and what the services, the accounting services that were provided by Melanson, and then at what point in time was it actually provided to the audit section of Melanson that wasn't doing the attest services and said that the books are closed, they're consolidated, and we have final financials, and now your auditing section can come in and do this. So I think that would be involved in section H here in trying to get the non-attest services straightened out and the timing, because the non-attest services will need to be, if I understand it right, the trial balance comes out and previously and went to Melanson. They dropped it into a program and they cranked out all the entries, and then I guess they worked with Judy to do closing, consolidated, and eliminating entries to have a final financial. And then after that, basically the auditing section picked that up and audited what was done there. And the audit committee had a problem with that as far as independence, because we weren't really clear on what kind of entries and who was doing the entries at that point in time.
I've got some of those answers for you. I tried to
Okay.
take good notes and come back with some answers for you
So-
guys.
Thank you.
And we were going to a separate RFP based on the advice that we did receive from Melanson previously.
Right.
So I guess the black hole for me is that section. And then what's
So
gonna move
starting
forward.
with the item number 6, May 1st, where it stipulates that the management prepares closing entries, that's up for grabs.
Well,
We need to refine that.
The other thing is, you can't do closing entries until the books are closed.
Right,
So that's going to be down anytime after June
June 30.
30th. But does the city staff prepare the closing entries, or do they receive it from the model that Melanson was doing? And that's what we need clarity on first, I guess.
So maybe it would help if I give you some of the clarifications as to the pieces that we've been talking about in terms of how we do our books, and then what happens at year end with the schedule. So I think if you give me a moment, I'll kind of walk
Sure,
through
okay,
this.
yeah.
And that might help inform your
I understand.
conversation. So that's,
Okay.
okay. So first off, I thought I heard, and I wanted to make sure if it did come up at the last meeting, just to kind of clarify the starting point. So the city does not maintain its trial balance on a cash basis. So the city maintains its general ledger on the modified accrual basis of accounting for government funds, and on the full accrual basis of accounting for its enterprise funds, consistent, with the generally accepted principles. So that's your starting point. You've got modified accrual basis on the city side, and then for your enterprise funds, we have the full accrual. So Melanson has never prepared the city's traditional year-end closing entries. Melanson prepares entries to convert the government funds, which are maintained on that modified accrual basis of accounting, to the full accrual basis of accounting. So they help with that conversion process. So in terms of the schedule, and what that means. So the finance department, you got to remember, maintains approximately 50 funds that require year-end closing. So just put that in your mind.
I'm sorry, are those the enterprise funds?
So we have the 2 enterprise funds, water, sewer.
Yep.
But then we have a bunch of other funds, some of them underwater sewer, and then additional funds. So that's why it's a little more complicated than one, might initially think from a first look at the budget. So you've got 50 funds. So what happens is you get to June 30 and you have your year-end closing. So in accordance with the modified accrual basis of accounting, there is a 60-day rule after the year end where government agencies record revenues that are recognized in the accounting period in which they become susceptible to accrual. So that is when they become both measurable and available.
So I'm sorry, so the clock starts on June 30.
So June 30 is our fiscal year end, but there's a 60-day rule.
Yep.
And the 60-day rule brings us then to August 30.
Right.
So you've got that 60-day period of time where there's still, the transactions are taking place, so to speak, in terms of recognition, as I understand it, of revenues that are, showing up, and invoices that are still, the work was incurred in June, before June 30th, and are still coming in or getting recorded, if you will.
Yep.
So you have invoices also that are issued before June 30 are still being processed in the months of July and August, and I can tell you Judy's always hounding all of us in all the departments to make sure we get those invoices in. So the month of September and partly into October, the final closings are prepared by the city. And then mid-October, the trial balances and schedules are provided to the auditors in October. So you remember, Counselor Huda, when you had some request, I think in late August, of Judy from the, in the city council packet, and she said we'd be better able to answer that in October. That's why it's the schedule right here, in terms of letting that 60-day period run, and then we need to do our work and then deliver the answers, kind of where we are in October. So
I'm sorry, so
Yep.
September 1, say, to mid-October, the adjustments are being made and converting from these trial balances to a fully accrued basis.
That's my understanding.
And consolidating the accounts.
Yep.
And that's done by city staff.
So there's a good chunk of work done by city staff, and I will be honest with you, I'm not sure where Melanson comes in, and then they get uploaded all the information. So they're getting information as they go, but it kind of gets finalized when you get into that mid-September, October period.
So I believe that's the key section that we're going to need, because
So it says, I've got on my notes from Judy, it says, the trial balances and schedules are provided to the auditors in October.
Oh, good.
So trial balances mean no closing entries, no consolidated entries, nothing.
as far as I understand. But I'm happy to double-check that.
Okay.
My guess is that this is very common with most municipalities and most schools and people that deal with federal, the timeline Suzanne just gave you. My guess is, though, Mollison is looking for things, they usually give a list in July of what they're looking for, in particular what is important, you know, what is, like with the ESSER funds for the federal money that is coming in. I know a lot of the auditors are trying to get their hands around that. So they give you information that they request. So my guess is that would take place, and then in August, or the end of August, in September, they're just finalizing it. Am I accurate in that, Suzanne?
So there's a lot of information that does get uploaded to the auditing firm, you know, in July. You know, it was in our contract. So, for example, you know, if there are grant conditions and things like that, you know, there is a base of work that does get uploaded, you know, early on in the season, which is why you want an auditing firm to be in place, you know, early in the year, because there is this setting up and they begin to figure out where they're going to test. So they need, you know, there is a lot that can get uploaded. It's that closing piece that just doesn't happen. So this is not to suggest that there isn't a lot of work happening, you know, earlier. It's just that you can't do the closing piece and the trial balances until you finally finish and close out the year, which is that crazy period for us of September, October, where, okay, now we're really, really done and getting it to the next level. But Councilor Kennedy is right, and you guys saw, you know, when we worked with Melanson last year, which is we had a deadline to provide a bunch of information prior to, because that's how they set up their testing.
Right,
You
it's
know,
in the-
where they want to test, they're
Right.
starting to get that information of the city's systems and processes, I guess is a better word. So then in the end of November, mid-December, we usually have a draft of that comprehensive annual financial report and the MD&A. And December 31st is that deadline of the submission for the, now it's called the ACFA, which is the annual comprehensive financial report, since they changed the name of
Suzanne,
it.
when do they come into the city?
So in this past year, they came twice. They came once at the end of August to do some preliminary work. Like I said, there is a lot of work that goes on before the end, you know, before we finish the closeout, and then they came in November. I think it was mid-November this year then, with all kind of the next wave now that we had closed out the year end.
So so they did the preliminary audit in August, and they did the final audit in November.
Well, I wouldn't call it preliminary, but preliminary work is what I would call it.
Preliminary work, well,
Yeah.
we call it preliminary audit. So basically, that's very common for
Yeah.
everyone there. I know a lot of you guys are in business, it's a little different, but for governmental entities, because of the way the grants run, that's very common.
Makes common sense.
Yep. And then, let me just, I think it might be helpful, let me tell you what our concerns are about splitting out the non-attest services. I think you would probably hear from Melanson that I don't think they recommended splitting out the non-attest services. I don't know. I think maybe, contractual, like we could have done a better job maybe lumping them together in terms of how we describe them in the contract, but not necessarily splitting them out. But let me tell you the pros and cons, because we're not saying it can't be done. So I think, let me spell it out, and then you guys can take that into consideration. So what we would be anticipating is that if you are going to split out the non-attest services from the audit itself, we are clearly going to have a more cost, because you're going to have two firms, and there's going to be a fair amount of overlap, not a fair amount, but there's going to be some overlap in terms of what you're providing each firm, because you've got, obviously, the non-attest services, and right now, because you have one firm doing it, they don't have to do a lot of extra work to get up to speed to then produce the other piece. So I think you just have to recognize, and it may be worth that cost, but we have to acknowledge
Right.
that there is a cost. Second, it does compress the time frame for the auditing firm to complete their audit and provide an opinion in time for the submission for the December 31st deadline, because you have to wait till that, all those financial statements are completed, which may not be until, November, for then that next piece to happen. Third piece is it does increase the burden from the finance department and on the legal staff, as all documents, discussions, and cross-references will be basically done by two firms. So there is an impact on staff to basically do some of the work twice. The finance department would anticipate that if we are going to move away and split this up, that we are probably talking about an additional staff person for the finance department if we're going to be splitting this up, because we're anticipating there will be additional work related to that. So that's why it's feeling more like a policy.
Would that be
There's a piece.
Full-time or part-time?
It may not have to be full-time, but we anticipate there would be a staff impact. And like I said, we're scrambling because we've only had this, kind of concept since the last meeting. And so we're trying to feed back as much information as we can, because we were, in our mind, already drafting to go out for RFP based on the model we've had in the past.
Right.
I think, and here's the other couple pieces, and again, that way you've got them in full in terms of what you can think about, which is, we think the reason why you will see that most New Hampshire municipalities are doing it exactly the way Portsmouth is doing it, which is you have the same firm doing the non-attest services as the audit firm, is New Hampshire permits it, it saves money, and it helps you meet the timeframes. So as far as we're aware, this is how most towns in New Hampshire, municipalities, and even in New England are doing it. And maybe we're just frugal and cheap up in New England, I don't know. But this, and we did reach out to Melanson, they said, yeah, in other parts of the country it's done differently, or bigger cities, real big cities, do have it separate, or they have in-house, a more robust finance department, so they're doing all their, they don't have to shop out for non-attest. So it is common here in New Hampshire, and Melanson actually does this for all their other clients. They do both. And we did ask Melanson about this, how can you do both? And the section that they gave us is that an auditor is allowed to perform non-attest services. If you look at Chapter 3 of the 2018 Yellow Book, which is, for those who don't know, the generally accepted government auditing standard, identifies assistance with financial statement preparation as a, what they call, threat to independence. So you guys are right, I'm not arguing with you. The identification of a threat requires the auditor to apply the safeguards to ensure independence. And that process, as we understand it, is rather involved, but Melanson has advised that they do apply those safeguards, and they have satisfied itself that the city also has an individual, because this is part of it, the city has an individual with suitable skill, knowledge, or experience to oversee and accept responsibility for the service. So there are components within Melanson, and Melanson looking at its client to make sure the client has enough, basically, financial chutzpah and skill and, ethics and all that kind of thing, that this works. So there is a structure built into place within the auditing field for this combined services, but that's why you can do it, that's why I want to make it clear, you can pull it out, and we're not saying you can't, and there may be reasons to do that, but it is not common here in New Hampshire, at least, and to some extent New England, but it is done in other places. And it's just, it does rise to the, if we're going to do that, there are policy implications in the sense of we got to be thinking about the cost of that, because the way we budgeted it last year is assumption that, yeah, we're going out for an RFP, we might be paying a little more, but you may be talking on the order of magnitude of $25,000 more, if you're going to split up and you've got some fair amount of duplication of work. And that's our best guess because we haven't split it out, so we're just trying to, figure this out. So that's what I wanted to bring to you guys.
First of all,
Yeah.
I very much appreciate your laying this out, Suzanne. It's very helpful.
Very helpful, thank you.
So Melanson looks to the city for in-house expertise that can oversee the process to help respond to and alleviate these concerns that are verbalized in the Yellow Book.
Yep.
Who is that person? Is that person already on staff?
I assume it's the finance director.
Okay, and, okay.
And it may be also, or it may be Andrew Pergel has also been with the city for a long time. He was our controller.
Right.
So we've got robustness, we don't have, someone who works part-time who may not have the full credit, when you think of other smaller towns and places where they may not have the robustness. Plus, you have to remember, because we do get a lot of grant funds, as, Councilor Kennedy is very familiar with, we sometimes get audited by the state of New Hampshire or some arm of the federal government. So we have, kind of like when you have a commercial builder, there are always other people looking over your shoulder.
Sure.
So we do have other people looking over our shoulder.
Sure.
So there's that piece. And I wanted to, if you want, the other piece that we thought would be helpful to feedback was this internal controls examination.
Mm-hmm.
So Judy recalls that they have, it's been a long time, done like a modified kind of, internals controls look with an outside company when they had questions years ago on a particular department, I forget which one, to try and figure out better processes and get some recommendations.
Yep.
That kind of internal controls work does not need to go with the audit. So there is going to, obviously, there'd be an additional cost for getting that opinion, but we could pull that out. It doesn't need to go with this RFP. It can be done at any time, and in fact, we'd recommend, given that it will have an impact, again, on the finance department. Our finance department is not that big, and so they would actually recommend that if that scope of work is going to get done at some point, that would be done kind of offsite, not in the middle of trying to make sure that we get a good audit done and do it at some other part of the year. So that was just kind of some of the feedback there, that don't feel the need to kind of rush that piece out.
Right.
If it, because it doesn't need to be. It can go separate from. So that was
Which I
the
think makes
feedback
sense.
there.
We don't want to be, inundating you guys with so many changes that you just throw up your hands and say, screw it.
Right, you want changes that can be implemented, and you want
And be effective.
good recommendations, not.
Right. But our
Yeah.
goal is to, keep incrementally, it's like Kaizen in Japanese manufacturing, that every year you make incremental improvements to get a better and better car. Same idea here.
Yeah, and we would, I think, absolutely agree that is part of when government is functioning well, you look for improvements and you fix things that aren't working well, so.
Yeah, Peter.
Okay, so I guess I have some comments and questions on a lot of the statements that were just made. When we did meet previously with Elena, she did suggest that these be done, they couldn't do to the level that we wanted at the time. So that's why we are bringing this forward. The other part of this is that I will readily admit I do not understand, and I still don't quite, it's not clear to me, the differentiation between what the staff is preparing and what is provided by these non-attest services, and then how it rolls in. So the other thing is, I don't have a problem with combining them. And this RFP will be going out to all of the other auditing firms involved. So it might be advantageous to discuss that with them, since this year we are going out in a timely manner. The next thing I kind of want to address, and I don't have any, I remember from the budget, but I don't have any idea where it is there was another position called for in the finance department.
Yep.
In the budget, and I don't know if it was hired. I have
can
no idea.
Update you on that. So let me clarify a couple of points. So let me start. Melanson actually would not do an internal controls examination. That's not in their wheelhouse.
Right,
wasn't-
Elena's indicated
Right,
that we
she
would
wouldn't
need to
do
go
that.
another.
Right,
We're
right,
talking about
exactly.
the non-attest services, the
Okay,
the
I just-
preparing of the stuff, of the other stuff.
Right, they do that. They do
Right,
the non-attest
right.
services. But I just wanted to make it clear that, in case there was a question, that they normally do not do that
Right.
type of work.
No, we
That's not their
understand.
expertise. And in terms of the position, we have been looking for someone to fill that new position in finance. And as you might imagine, given the hiring market and the fact that we have huge numbers of positions not filled here, it's hard to find people with the right skill set and the right expertise willing to work for the amount of
So,
money we offer. So it is
At
an
this point in
unfilled
time, it is
position.
unfilled.
Yep, it is. Unfortunately,
So we are almost 6 months in, and,
Yep.
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
and yeah, it's hard to find people with enough of a, in the ideal world, municipal finance background or someone willing to undertake the.
So we're talking,
effort to
we're
learn.
talking about next September, October, and that will flip over to another fiscal year also.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's a long time.
Yeah.
I would think by that time we would have somebody on board if the requirements were there.
We're hoping. It's like I
So
said,
that-
it's a
that-
tough market right now.
That's the other that's the other comment there. I guess.
Can I comment on personnel?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, first of all, I really have a hard time believing that we're gonna need an extra person if the things are being prepared, because you're basically breaking it out and giving it to the same information. So if you're already pulling together and preparing, I find that quite unbelievable. I understand the shortage. I truly believe the shortage will probably continue. So it probably will continue to be hard to find personnel. But I really don't see that the need for a new person to do this particular audit where you're already pulling everything together. It's really uploading and separating out. So just a thought.
So Esther, you're talking in terms of what's the issue Suzanne raised earlier, that we need, that the increased burden on finance and legal would suggest that we need to have an additional part-time, possibly part-time person. And your feeling is that you question that need.
I question that because you're pulling the same information together. We do multi-million-dollar audits, and we're at $28 million. And we have a lot of federal grants and a lot of federal, and you're pulling things together, and at the end of your term, after your preliminary audit, they pretty much tell you what they're looking for new or preliminary gathering of information, however Suzanne wants to say it. They pretty much tell you what you need and what new things they're looking for given what's happening in the world. And I guess all that stuff comes together. I mean, your POs are in, your hopefully I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. And whoever you give that information to, whether you give it to the auditors, which auditor, I would think wouldn't really be much of a burden because you're really uploading everything too. I mean, we all have these great new software where everything goes in the software and you just basically move it to whoever needs it. So I guess I'm a little perplexed on that one. I think there is some questions about, one of the reasons we're doing this, we had an audit committee, is there's some questions about our audits and anything we can do. And I guess my question is, can we do this, at least try it? And then if it becomes something that doesn't need it, but just to get a second opinion this year might be a good thing. And
To that point, if I may, so we've contacted 5 additional accounting firms. They're all located in Massachusetts. But I'm happy to do a sampling with a few of them. I've had long conversations with these individuals, and they're, some are more eager than others to do this, to be considered, but clearly there's an interest. So I'm happy to have a conversation with a few of them and test their interest and how they would approach this, whether, also providing non-attest services is enough of a red flag for them that they'd rather not do it, or maybe that's just a normal, operating procedure for them. And so I can make those, what's today, Thursday? I mean, I can start making those. Alice and I drive down to the Cape tonight, but I can get on the phone as we're driving and start making phone calls.
We were kind of wrestling with that question in-house, once you raised the issue at the last meeting. We were trying to wrestle with how to try and meet what we think are maybe our concerns, even if we don't share your concerns, but try and meet your concerns on these, and trying to figure out whether we could somehow structure an RFP that allowed proposers to propose on simply one element of the work, and then see what the cost is if we do it all together, like Melanson has been doing. What is that cost? And hopefully it's still in the range of what we would have anticipated. It was like 66.8 this year.
Right.
And, so maybe it's only 70 if it's a continued bundle of services. And then maybe you also say, or you could
Disaggregate.
you could propose on just the audit alone and what that would look like, and then propose or not on the non-attest services, and then we could really look at the numbers. I think the challenge so we were kind of wrestling with that. Judy and I were back and forth. Could we do that? Could we, how would that work? Would we get real numbers? And then how do we weigh that all in the mix? So that was an ongoing conversation. So Judy's in the middle right now of trying to get everything done for that December 31st deadline. So my time with her has been, I'm trying to grab it where she's got natural downtime between her other pieces. Plus, we're doing CIP. So we've been, and that goes, to the planning board on Wednesday night. So we have been slammed.
Yep.
And so that's why I don't have everything. I was trying to get you as many things as I could in terms of information back, because
And I appreciate that.
the city manager, like I said, we were thinking we were just going to whip something up, because like I said, we have a different view in terms of the role of the audit committee, but we were planning still to go out for an RFP to follow through on the commitment Karen made to let's go out, let's survey the market. We had just been starting that process under the assumption it would look similar to, and let's see what we get for proposals, doing it like we've always done it, simply because it has been cost effective, it is compliant, and we've got a AAA bond rating. So why would you possibly mess with the program, at least without having a lot of space to do it?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but we're trying to take what you're offering and we're teasing it out. We're trying to have that conversation.
Thank you.
Would it work?
Thank you for being open.
What's the pros and cons of it?
Petra, what's the?
Yeah.
So I guess something I'd like to put out on the table and remind everybody that Melanson has been doing this audit for 20, 25, 27 years. And the main gist of this was to engage other firms to bring that in. Also, we do not know, as an audit committee, and I wasn't really clear on how you stated it, when the previous, review of internal controls was done, and if there is a report that we could look at for that. The other big thing here is on the on the money, this is going to flip over until the next fiscal year. So I think the audit committee, I know myself, has anticipated that we could have to have some more allocated because of the timing of the previous audits. When somebody new comes in, whether it's 2 firms, 5 firms, they're going to want to do their own due diligence. They're going to want to look at what the non-attest services are. They might rearrange this. I mean, the problem we're looking at here is having a firm that has done this for 25 years being able to come in and kick out this, where when we get somebody else new to come in, you're absolutely correct. All the information on the lead schedules and everything is usually provided. That should not change, no matter who comes in, if it's Melanson or somebody else. But as they go through and kind of make their own plans as far as staffing and everything else, it's going to be interesting because you haven't had anybody different in here for that long period of time.
Right. And, oh,
So,
no, when you're, I didn't mean to, I'm trying to avoid that.
I totally agree, and I mean, the budgeting aspect is going to be an eye-opener, but I'm very much aware of the time.
right.
So let's set aside then the first RFP, and knowing that we need to address the issue of whether the non-attest services may or may not be part of the RFP. And so that then has obvious bearings on the second RFP, because there's, I mean, this has been created as if it were a standalone service that we're talking about. It does make me nervous because next week, we're going to have a huge amount of work to do in order to get all this stuff together. And we have just one meeting set up on the 15th at 5 o'clock. So I guess what I would ask is if we can perhaps set aside, instead of just an hour and a half, next Wednesday, the 15th, so that we give ourselves a little more time. Esther, would that be convenient for you? I mean, it's not a matter of being convenient. Is that possible?
Yeah, next week at 2 o'clock?
No, this would be at 5. 5 on
o'clock?
Wednesday afternoon. Wednesday.
15.
Okay. The 15th, that might be a little difficult because I'm supposed to be at a skateboard meeting at 4:30.
I see.
So I canceled that because I thought this was replacing it. I apologize.
I see.
I mean, if it's,
Can we do 2 o'clock? Because I don't mind doing live, 2 o'clock and come.
Can you come at 2? Hawk, what's your, on the
Oh, let's
15th?
take a look. Hang on a second.
I'm pretty open myself, so.
I'm open
On the 15th, huh?
Yeah.
so far.
I haven't got my other calendar here, but I think we can do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's schedule 2 o'clock for an hour and a half on the 15th.
Perfect.
Okay, great. So then let's, Peter, I'm very interested in hearing your thoughts on the non-attest RFP. Maybe we could do that on a side conversation,
Okay, because
unless you have any major issues that you want to highlight.
I don't, I think the schedule
Is a problem, is
is
problematic.
a little aggressive, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we don't know, I don't know, I'm not clear
So-
as to what the finance department is going to have been preparing or is going to be able to prepare. Plus, I'm anticipating that we will have a switch out in auditing firms on this. And it'll depend on how they look at the non-attested services versus this and the timing.
I'm, frankly, that schedule, with
Yeah.
whatever it is that's outlined on, where the
Page
heck is
10.
it? Yeah, page 10, thank you. That schedule, I think, this is just an RFP, and the real you know, I mean, where the rubber really meets the road is when the contract is drafted. And so, and if a bidding firm is interested, I mean, I know, because I used to do this as a geologist, you know, you take the RFP and you use it as a launching pad for indicating how creative and insightful you can be. So I would hope that whoever bids on this would treat it similarly and say, you know, you can't do that. You know, you need to have this, this, and this.
If I can follow up, that's exactly what I was going to offer, that as we discussed kind of last year, but I know it's been a long time and I live this stuff, so apologies. The beauty of an RFP is that you are only getting proposals. And so the contract terms get negotiated. So what is helpful is to put like the key date, which is in terms of what they would need to do when their proposal is submitted, you know, when questions are due, when their proposal gets submitted, give them a rough time frame for when you think you'd be under contract. You know, we intend to be under contract by, I think we talked about no later than April 1st, based on my recollection from
Yeah.
Councilor Kennedy, and I think it'll be sooner than that, honestly, if we can get this out the door. And then really all you need is to tell them what the deliverable is. And the deliverable is, you know, that December 31st.
Right.
You know, you need that. And after that, everything else can be negotiated. And I don't think it's a hard negotiation. You just sit down with the calendars and say, okay, here's when the finance department and the, you know, the auditing firm can look at their calendars and say, okay, given the people we're going to assign, given when people are, you know, on vacation, let's schedule the date for to be in for the week like we did with Melanson.
Yep.
And then figure out those dates and you just put them into the contract. So that is the beauty of the RFP. And if, you know, it allows for that flexibility of conversation about how to accomplish the work. And then you just get it documented. So I actually think you can do much less, not have to worry about that right now, and then it's part of the contract negotiation.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, it's a conversation to just memorialize how to get the work done.
So I guess my concern there will be from our experience last year, as well as you know, when we put it down and we thought it was a simple moving forward, and we made some requests, the price went up. And the price went up based on their perception of what they thought we were saying. And when we went back and looked in the SASs and the gas and everything, and the AICB, that was supposed to be provided. So I guess that would probably be my only concern about, you know, going from the RFP to the contract without, you know, checking all the boxes and making
Right.
sure that we were getting in the contract what we were supposed to get, and especially if we want to add something. So that would be definitely a concern of mine.
Well, what I'll do over this weekend is to try to revise this H to try to incorporate the points that
Where you were
making.
going, right.
And meanwhile, I'll also, I mean, I've gotten to be not best of buds, but you know, I've had some pretty good conversations with some of these guys. So I am inclined to give them a call and see what their thoughts are on non-attest versus non-attest. And so I'll, if I can, if I include you, Suzanne, then you become our counsel, if you will, so it's no longer a meeting, but rather an advisory session. And I can share the results of my research.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest pieces for us to collectively keep in mind is that when we have, the reason why you see Melanson doing so much work within the state of New Hampshire and why they have done so much work for the city of Portsmouth and why, because of that, they do have to follow that rotating schedule. They switch people out every few years, is because you've got a fairly small community of auditing firms that are interested enough in work in New Hampshire that they're willing to learn New Hampshire law. And that is the key, because you don't want the audit to come back as, having issues simply because they didn't understand New Hampshire law. So like this whole, these little goofy things that we have in New Hampshire. And that's really finding, and it may be there are firms willing to step up, which is why we should do an RFP, who want to come in and test the market. And then part of the evaluation process is, if they haven't done much New Hampshire work, really are they committed to, they maybe because they've just hired someone from, who's done a lot of New Hampshire work, or whatever the issue is. I think that is going to be your key piece, because we, as a AAA bond rated company, do not want to have a firm not, we don't want them to screw up, frankly, our good track record.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. We are AAA bond rated company for a reason.
That's quite a jump there,
For a
Suzanne.
reason.
They are,
It's-
if they're licensed here and they're practicing,
And I'm-
doesn't
and-
matter where they're from.
It does,
There's a
actually. There is a standard, but
Okay.
there are New Hampshire standards
We're
as
not
well.
going to resolve this
So,
point.
yeah,
I
I'm
hear
just saying.
your note
yeah.
of caution.
Yeah.
And it's something that we will be
Right.
looking at closely.
Right.
So the last point I want to talk about then is the charter. See if we can't get this taken care of.
So is it the same as we had?
It's-
the one?
Yeah, it's essentially the same. I will highlight the two places where I've added a little bit more verbiage. So this is what I handed out last time. Esther, I think you got a hard copy of that when you were here last. The addition is the paragraph at the top of page 3, where there was no mention of our bringing in outside expertise if need be. And not that I'm wanting to necessarily do that, but I think that the audit committee, and I'm trying to think, into the future, the audit committee may feel a need to have that ability to do that. So that's where this paragraph comes in. Whether it's legal expertise or whatever, that is an option. And obviously, it would require funding from the city council, so there's a check and balance there in terms of what we could do. The other area that I was trying to get clear in my mind is on page 2, this third paragraph down. And Suzanne, maybe you can help me with this. Because of the length of term, once we're up and running, each person should have, as I understand it, a 3-year term to allow for staggering.
Chris,
Yep.
on page 3, I guess I'm fine with it because, and I would hope the city would be, because you're basically saying that you're going to go back to the city council to gather their input and information and expertise in deciding the financial and if any additional audit. So it's not like this committee is going solo. They're asking
Right.
permission to go back to city council, which is what this committee should do. I mean, according to our charter. So I guess
Yeah.
I wasn't sure why the city had a concern with that part.
I haven't heard any concern expressed.
Okay. I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood that.
No, but I think, I think you're correct, Esther, that we're a creature of the council. And they provide our lifeblood and our sustenance, so we really.
So, I read the document. I think the whole document's well done. And
Well, thank
I
you.
think there was a question in the last meeting, and I really hadn't had time to review this document to the fullest when I participated, about who had authority. But in the whole document, you're referring back to city council, which ultimately has the authority.
Right. Thank you.
I don't have any problem with that paragraph that you're just talking about.
Oh, good,
It
okay.
says if you decide at some point you think you need some
help.
other counsel, you are free to petition the city council for, I'd say that's true for any committee without it needing to be in writing. So I'm happy you got it in writing, that's good.
Okay.
So,
So, third paragraph down on the second page, help me with the staggering, because when we launched the ship, I'm here for 3 years, whether you like it or not, and
Yep.
Hawk is here for 2.
yep.
If Jesse is voted in on the 20th, will he be here for just 1 year?
I believe that's what's left in the, let's see, hold on, I got the original ordinance, okay. The initial terms of the members of the committee shall be for 3-year terms, except that the length of the initial terms to be staggered as follows. In year of initial appointment, 3 members shall be 3-year terms, 2 members shall be 2-year terms. Thereafter,
It's confusing.
yeah, thereafter, all members shall serve a term of 3 years. So it looks like you've got 3 members are for 3-year terms and 2 members are for 2-year terms.
It doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense to me as I was reading it.
So then, Jesse needs to be defined
I know,
for the final vote then? Is that,
Well,
The assumption.
perhaps, I just don't know.
my recollection was, I thought the mayor had indicated your length of term when he appointed each of you. I don't remember what it
Yes,
was
he
off the
did.
top of my head.
So Hawk's
Okay.
for 2, and I'm for
Yep.
3.
Yep.
But I don't think there's any
shall be for 3 years?
definition for Jesse.
Oh, I will check that, because we could fix that when he takes the final vote.
Yep,
Excellent,
Okay,
Yeah.
make a note.
thank you.
excellent.
So right now, this reads that the initial appointments, 1 is for 1 year, and I'm guessing that would be Jesse. Hawk is for 2, and 1,
Well, I'm looking at the ordinance. The ordinance says,
ordinance is very confusing to me.
is 3 members shall be for 3-year terms and 2 members shall be 2-year terms. Let's see.
Well,
Thereafter,
Initial. The difference is probably the initial term
Right.
here.
right. Right, and in the year of the initial appointment, 3 members shall be 3-year terms and 2 members 2-year terms. Thereafter, all members shall serve a term of 3 years. So I say it as 3 and 2, and then once that initial term is over, so once your term is over,
Yeah.
if you were to reapply,
Yeah,
you would then apply for a 3-year term.
right. So how about Jesse, though?
Yeah.
She should be either 3 or 2.
He
Yeah.
Sorry.
is a what? A 3-year?
No, a 3 or a 2. I have a vague recollection when the mayor appointed the 2 city councilors, I just don't remember if he identified you guys as having a specific term or not.
Well,
I
the city
don't remember.
councilors-
We're done.
I know you're done anyway. I know, you
Has a
get to.
history.
Yeah, we're in, we're out. I mean, the
Yeah.
counselors are going to be in and out of this
Yeah.
committee.
So
That's why I
maybe-
wanted,
The mayor did appoint, I know Chris for 3 years.
I remember
and
that.
Ross
And
for
Hawk for
2.
2.
Yeah,
So Jesse would be 2 if you look at the new ordinance, I believe.
Okay.
I just was trying to find it.
All
I
right,
think
thank you.
All right, thanks. Good.
there's no 1 year then.
yeah, no.
Okay, good.
Does not seem to be a 1 year.
Right. Okay, I will make that change. Great, so what I'd like to do then is to vote on this next time to approve the charter. Okay, I think that's it. We're 4 minutes late. I apologize, unless there's anything else that's absolutely burning.
No, I'm going to try and get some of that information available and see how much further we can get on our thinking as well and
Great.
take back this conversation to the rest
Well, I
of the
thought it
crew.
was very helpful, your
So-
conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very helpful to me.
So,
yes, indeed. Okay. So we adjourn? Do I get a motion?
I move to adjourn.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Bye, Esther.
Esther, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Suzanne, do you want me to send this recording, or?
We did also have Kevin make sure it was getting recorded on the city system so that you